Welcome back to the deep dive.
Great to be back.
Today we're taking a deep dive into something really common: magnesium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2 supplements.
Right, you see them everywhere. Doctors recommend them. Health influencers talk about them constantly. They're huge sellers.
Exactly. And there's this assumption, particularly among seniors, that they're just automatically safe, a straightforward way to boost your health.
But after digging into a lot of material on this, studies, reports, analyses, it's clear that assumption is, well, maybe only half the story.
Yeah.
Our sources really highlight that taking these, especially together or, incorrectly, can carry some significant, sometimes surprising dangers.
That's what we want to unpack today. We've pulled together insights from these sources that lay out potential dangers when these are taken the wrong way.
And what's really interesting is how they rank these effects, starting with maybe less obvious things and going right up to, frankly, life-threatening risks.
And sometimes happening much faster than you'd think.
Absolutely. It's a bit of a wake-up call, isn't it, that even things we think are just good for us need some understanding.
So let's walk through what the research indicates, explore why these risks might happen, and cover the signs you really need to watch out for. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the sources rank these potential dangers, counting down from 10.
Starting at number 10.
Electrolyte imbalance. Multiple sources flag this as a common but often missed starting point for trouble.
Right, and the research makes it clear how this happens. Taking magnesium, particularly on its own or in high doses, without thinking about calcium, potassium, sodium.
Yeah, the balance gets thrown off, and surprisingly quickly sometimes.
And the effects, what are we talking about here?
Well, it can mess with nerve and muscle control. Think misfiring nerves, involuntary muscle twitches.
Like a twitching eyelid or restless legs.
Exactly. Or just feeling kind of jittery even when you're taking magnesium supposedly to relax.
There was one study, I think 2020, Journal of Clinical Medicine.
That's the one. Healthy adults, high-dose magnesium, no dietary changes. Within 72 hours, 3 days.
Wow.
Nearly 40% had mild to moderate nerve excitability issues, tremors, tension, even slight heart rhythm things, sleep disruption.
And didn't that study mention it was worse if potassium or calcium were already low?
Yes, precisely. It really shows how flooding the system with magnesium can potentially push other essential minerals down if your levels aren't solid to begin with.
So the guidance from these sources is pretty clear. Don't just take magnesium blindly.
Right. Especially for seniors. You need to think about sodium, hydration, preferably with mineral-rich fluids, and getting potassium from food first, avocados, cooked spinach, things like that.
Before jumping to high doses.
Exactly. So if you start magnesium and feel more edgy or sleep gets worse, the research suggests it's maybe not just stress.
It could be an imbalance.
Could be your body signaling.
Okay, number 9 on the list.
Sudden drops in blood pressure.
Okay. Magnesium relaxes blood vessels, we know that.
Yeah.
But the warning here is about it going too far, too fast.
Yes, particularly when taken incorrectly, and especially alongside D3, according to some sources.
And seniors are at higher risk.
Definitely. Especially if you already tend towards low pressure or you're on, say, hypertension meds like ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, diuretics.
So what would that feel like?
Lightheadedness, feeling foggy, weak, especially when you stand up. Dizziness, maybe nausea.
That feeling you might just brush off as being tired.
Could actually be a blood pressure crash.
Yeah.
There was a 2019 study, hypertension research, adults on 400 milligram magnesium citrate.
Yeah.
Average 11-point drop in systolic pressure within 48 hours. And 1 in 4 felt dizzy or faint upon standing. Orthostatic hypotension.
And the D3 link. Why does adding D3 make it potentially worse?
Well, D3 increases calcium absorption. Calcium impacts vascular tone. So you add magnesium's relaxation effect plus the calcium effect from D3.
And you get a bigger drop.
Potentially, yes. Sources also warn being dehydrated or skipping meals could make it worse. Increases fall risk, even blackouts.
So that dizzy spell when you stand up isn't just annoying.
According to these reports, it could be a sign of a dangerous drop triggered by how you're taking supplements.
All right, number 8. This one seems common but maybe underestimated. Diarrhea and nutrient malabsorption.
Yeah, magnesium, especially oxide or citrate forms, is kind of notorious for causing loose stools. But the danger for seniors, the research argues, goes beyond just inconvenience.
So.
That diarrhea strips your body water, electrolytes like potassium and sodium, and other key nutrients you need daily.
And in older adults, maybe with slower digestion or less efficient kidneys.
It seems to trigger inflammation, weaken muscle function, even slow down collagen repair for joints. It's described as quiet, daily damage.
There was a 2022 report, Digestive Diseases and Sciences. Adults over 60 on more than 350 milligram magnesium daily.
Right, almost half got mild to moderate diarrhea within 5 days. And crucially, that group showed lower zinc, sodium, and B12 levels by the end of the trial.
That's the malabsorption bit. Food moves too fast, you don't absorb the good stuff.
And over time, sources link that to a weaker immune response, slower healing.
Things like leg cramps, fatigue, maybe swollen ankles or feet.
Exactly. Painful lower joint swelling, too. It's often worse with big single doses or without food, and people might not connect the dots.
So, looser stools after starting magnesium, it's not just a nuisance.
Research suggests as your body signaling it's losing vital support. It might show up later as low energy or those awful night cramps.
Number 7 is heart palpitations and irregular rhythms, that sudden flutter or skipped beat. Scary stuff, especially for seniors.
Definitely. And several studies point fingers at incorrect combinations of magnesium, D3, or K2 as potential triggers or making things worse.
What's the proposed mechanism? How could vitamins cause that?
Well, the heart's rhythm depends on electrical signals, right? Powered by minerals and precise balance. Flooding the system with one without balancing the others.
Causes the signals to misfire.
That's the idea. It can feel like anxiety, but it might actually be the heart muscle struggling electrically.
A 2021 study, clinical cardiology. Older adults on daily magnesium.
Yes, 15% experienced new palpitations. And it was more common if they had low potassium or were on certain heart meds.
And adding D3 made it worse.
Adding D3 over 2,000 IU a day pushed the risk up to 22% in that group.
Wow. So the D3 calcium link, again, D3 boosts calcium, calcium affects contractions, magnesium affects relaxation and electrolytes.
It's like the heart's caught in a mineral tug-of-war, as you said. Experts warn people often blame stress or coffee.
But they might be taking a multivitamin plus a magnesium sleep aid plus a calcium D3 combo.
Exactly. Stacking things up without realizing the cumulative effect, potentially overstimulating the heart's electrical system.
So instead of relaxing, it races or flutters.
The advice is introduce these things gradually, ideally with guidance. Monitor your body. Heart symptoms. Don't ignore them.
Sources warn ignoring it could lead to worse things like AFib or chest pain.
Right. Your heart's electrical system is sensitive. Unbalanced minerals from supplements can sort of short-circuit it.
Oh, wait, number 6, constipation and calcium misplacement. We know D3 helps absorb calcium for bones.
But, and there's a huge but in the research without enough K2, that calcium doesn't reliably end up in your bones.
Where does it go instead?
Studies show it can start building up in soft tissues, arteries, kidneys.
And potential early sign of this, surprisingly, is constipation.
Counterintuitive, yeah. But research indicates excess calcium can slow bowel motility, stiffen the digestive tract, pull water out of the colon.
Making stools hard and difficult.
Exactly. That 2020 Bone Reports trial. Adults on D3 without K2 for 6 weeks.
Their bone density didn't really improve.
Right, but markers for vascular calcification went up significantly. Soft tissue calcium increased over 21%.
And a third of them reported new digestive sluggishness.
Yes. For seniors, this isn't just uncomfortable. It could lead to bloating, toxin buildup, hemorrhoids, even blockages in severe cases.
So K2 is the key here.
Absolutely. Research shows K2 activates proteins that act like traffic cops for calcium, directing it into bones and teeth.
Keeping it out of arteries and organs.
Without K2, D3 is like sending in more traffic with no signals working. Calcium spills into circulation, kidneys, the gut.
And seniors with slower metabolism or maybe not drinking enough fluids are more vulnerable.
Right. So the takeaway is,
Yeah.
if D3 seems to slow your gut down, that's a signal. Always pair D3 with K2, preferably MK7.
That constipation might be a quiet sign of calcium building up where it shouldn't.
Exactly. Quietly stressing internal organs.
Number 5, kidney strain and silent damage. Kidneys are our filters, right? Balancing minerals, fluids, handling calcium.
Incredible organs, but research warns high-dose D3, especially with magnesium and maybe a high-calcium diet, can overload them.
How?
D3 ramps up calcium absorption from your gut, sometimes more than your kidneys can filter out.
Leading to too much calcium in the urine, hypercalciuria.
Yes. Sounds harmless, but sources say over time this causes silent damage. It builds towards kidney stones or even chronic kidney dysfunction, often without clear symptoms initially.
That 2018 Kidney International Report study, older adults on over 4,000 IU of D3 daily for just a month.
Showed a 33% average jump in urinary calcium.
And some already showed signs of kidney stress.
Yes, subtle changes creatinine, protein in urine, reduced filtration rates, and they often felt fine, totally unaware.
And seniors are more vulnerable because kidney function naturally declines with age anyway.
Right. So high-dose D3 can add significant strain to kidneys that might already be working harder.
What about symptoms, if they appear at all?
Often slow and vague, maybe lower back discomfort, fatigue, trouble concentrating. By the time a stone forms or function noticeably drops, considerable damage might already be done.
What starts as trying to help bones could become, as one analysis put it, a silent kidney attack.
High doses of D3 without guidance seem risky based on this.
Okay, we're getting towards the most serious effects now. Number 4, calcium buildup in arteries, increasing heart attack risk.
Yes, sources rank this as a major hidden danger. Some link it to a really sharp spike in stroke risk, too, which we'll get to.
This relates back to the D3 without K2 issue, right?
Exactly. D3 boosts calcium absorption, but without K2 directing it to bones, research consistently shows it deposits in artery walls, vascular calcification.
And the studies are pretty direct about the link to heart attack and stroke risk.
Very direct, especially in older adults. High-dose D3 alone raises blood calcium. Without K2, that excess calcium settles in arteries, described like cement. Hardened plaque is incredibly difficult to reverse.
That 2019 study, arteriosclerosis, thrombosis, and vascular biology, seniors on D3 without K2?
Within just 60 days, over 40% showed measurable increases in arterial stiffness.
60 days, that's fast.
Frighteningly fast. CT scans confirmed more calcium in their coronary arteries.
Yeah.
Most dramatic in those with existing heart conditions, but it happened quickly across the board.
And people might feel fine while this is happening.
That's the danger. No pain, no warning, until maybe sudden shortness of breath, chest pressure, or it shows up on a stress test. And the risk multiplies if you're already on statins or blood pressure meds.
Because the calcium buildup narrows the arteries.
Reducing blood flow and oxygen to the heart muscle, turning that silent buildup into a potential emergency.
Which brings us back to K2's crucial role.
Essential. Research shows it activates MGP, a protein that basically cleans excess calcium from arteries and puts it in bone. Without K2, D3 becomes like a loaded gun with no safety switch for your arteries.
So taking D3 for bones but skipping K2.
Could mean you're strengthening one system while quietly damaging your heart, according to these analyses. A gamble your heart can't afford.
Number 3, muscle weakness. This seems odd, doesn't it? People take magnesium for muscles.
It does feel contradictory. But the research indicates if your mineral balance is off, specifically magnesium, calcium, and potassium magnesium, can actually cause weakness.
How?
Instead of just relaxing muscles, it might disrupt the balance needed for proper contraction. So muscles feel fatigued, heavy, maybe even trembly. And it can get worse with higher doses or combinations.
So the nerve signal fires, but the muscle can't respond properly because the mineral environment is wrong.
That's the explanation suggested by the research. It leads to this weird, persistent tiredness in arms and legs that seems to build day by day.
The 2020 Frontiers in Physiology study. Older adults using magnesium for sleep or pain.
After just 2 weeks, over a quarter reported new muscle weakness, especially in their legs.
And blood tests confirmed the imbalance.
Showed lower potassium and higher magnesium, just the kind of imbalance linked to confused muscle signaling.
And that impacts energy, walking, balance.
Fall risk.
Hugely increases fall risk.
What about adding D3 to the mix?
Well, D3 boosts calcium. If that calcium isn't balanced by magnesium and guided by K2, it might flood muscle tissue. Some studies link this to cramping, slow movement, that heavy leg feeling.
And people might just think, oh, I'm just getting older.
Exactly. But it could be the supplements. The advice is clear. Consider mineral testing. Don't just take magnesium automatically. Look for balanced formulas, maybe with potassium. Be careful stacking things.
So if your muscles feel weaker after starting a new vitamin, research suggests it might not be age, it might be an overdose or imbalance from the supplements. Ignoring it is dangerous for mobility and independence.
Okay, number 2. This one's subtle but potentially very serious. A sudden drop in appetite and nutrient cravings.
Yeah, sources flag this as an overlooked side effect of incorrectly combining D3, K2, and magnesium. It seems to suppress hunger signals, but without ensuring you get the nutrients you still need.
So in seniors, this might look like suddenly losing interest in food, skipping meals.
Right, feeling indifferent about eating after starting these supplements. You might even think, oh good, I'm eating less, but the research calls it a major warning sign.
How does it happen? The mechanism.
It seems these nutrients can interfere with appetite hormones, leptin, ghrelin, and maybe change digestive enzymes. Result: You want fewer calories, but you're also absorbing less from what you do eat.
The 2022 Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry study, adults over 60 on combined D3K2 magnesium.
Within 2 weeks, nearly a third reported less hunger, eating less, even though their energy needs hadn't changed. The combo seemed to alter gut hormones, slow stomach emptying, even dull their taste,
Leading to unintentional undereating.
which is dangerous. Protein loss, electrolyte issues, even anemia. And because they didn't feel sick, just not hungry, it's insidious.
Appetite loss in seniors is always serious, isn't it?
Absolutely a serious red flag. You need regular intake for joints, muscles, brain function, immunity. Consistent undereating leads straight to sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss.
Increasing risk of falls, weakness, fractures.
Dramatically. So the message is urgent. If your appetite tanks after starting a D3 magnesium K2 stack, pay attention immediately.
Sources warn these nutrients can trick your body into starving quietly.
And reversing that kind of muscle loss takes a lot of time and effort.
All right, we've reached number 1, the most dangerous effect according to these reports, and one they say is almost never discussed.
Increased risk of stroke stemming from that misguided calcium buildup.
This is the combination of the D3 without K2 problem.
Exactly. The research is consistent. D3 boosts calcium absorption. Without enough K2, it doesn't just go to arteries near the heart. Studies suggest it can deposit in brain tissues too.
Turning bone health efforts into a potential pathway to vascular calcification in the brain's arteries.
Which narrows those arteries, increasing the risk of ischemic stroke, the kind caused by clots or blockages.
And the time frame. You said it could be quick?
Some studies suggest it can start silently within weeks of improper supplementation.
Weeks. That's terrifying.
It is. That 2021 stroke population study, over 45,000 older adults.
What did it find?
Those taking high-dose D3 without concurrent K2 had a 34% increased risk of stroke within the first 60 days.
60 days, a 34% higher risk.
Yes, not a slow long-term thing. It was happening fast. Scans showed early artery narrowing, calcium spikes, and blood tests.
Any symptoms reported in those affected?
Some had things like blurred vision, vertigo, temporary one-sided weakness, often with no prior cardiovascular history before starting the supplements.
And magnesium's role in this specific context.
It complicates it. Magnesium relaxes blood vessels, yes, but it also competes with calcium for absorption. If you're taking all three without careful balance,
Calcium gets redirected.
potentially, and without K2 acting as the guide, it can end up where it really shouldn't, like the carotid arteries supplying the brain.
So the overall warning is stark.
Taking these three together without medical oversight, without testing levels, might mean you're unknowingly increasing your stroke risk every single day.
But the answer isn't just stopping everything in fear.
No, it's about informed respect. The guidance is consistent. Always take D3 with K2. Watch your total calcium intake. Don't take high-dose D3, like over 2,000 IU daily, without knowing your levels and talking to a professional who understands these interactions.
And pay attention to subtle symptoms, dizziness, vision changes, speech, feeling off.
Don't brush them off. Research suggests they could be early warnings. If arteries are stiffening from calcium, including in the brain, a stroke could follow. What you think is helping?
What be hijacking your brain?
And it won't necessarily warn you clearly until it's too late, unless you're proactive.
Wow. So wrapping this up, our deep dive into these sources really paints a clear picture. Magnesium, D3, K2 powerful tools, yes.
But absolutely not automatically safe if taken without understanding how they interact. They can potentially disrupt nerves, strain kidneys, weaken muscles, kill appetite.
And critically, raise stroke risk, sometimes incredibly fast.
The overwhelming message is, precision matters. Don't guess. Don't just follow trends.
Your health needs informed choices. Professional guidance on doses, combos, monitoring, it's not really optional, is it? Especially for seniors.
Not at all. And maybe a final thought to leave people with, based on all this.
Yeah.
How many other common health practices, popular supplements, might have significant hidden risks we just don't fully grasp yet? Simply because we haven't looked closely enough at the complex ways things interact inside us.
That's a really important point. It's easy to assume simple cause and effect, but biology is rarely that simple.
Exactly.
Well, that's our deep dive into this source material.
If you found this useful and want more explorations like this, make sure you subscribe to the Deep Dive wherever you get your audio.
We really appreciate you listening. We'll be back with another deep dive soon.